You had this great idea of discussing anxiety today. And, I was reflecting on it last night. And what came to my mind, and I don't know if that's a good way to set the framework for this conversation, and you'll tell me how you feel about it. But I was almost thinking about it in two different levels. One is anxiety on a sort of high level around the world events like what we are experiencing now. There is so much turmoil, there is so much violence, there is so many horrible things happening. And especially for people who are in the war zones, who are in all those areas of conflict, it's almost impossible not to experience that anxiety. It's completely driven by external circumstances and just the way we're wired. Obviously, you cannot just disconnect. And the other almost type or the other level of anxiety, as I was thinking about it, is more of really just internally generated, if you like, just from the way we interpret what's going on. And it's kind of almost more mundane. It's about basic things, and quite often about things that haven't even happened, but they are just scenarios we're playing in our heads. So that's kind of the two ways I thought about. And I don't know if you have any views on these, or you also have some other ways to look at different types, levels, whatever you call them.
Yeah, we can go this route. It's okay. So I would address both what you said.
Yes.
Like, when you are in some really stressful situation, how to deal with it, how to accept it, and also with these imaginary things that 99% they don't happen, and how to deal with those. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, we almost put them in the same bucket. And, we tell someone who is in a war zone or in a very dangerous situation, life-threatening scenarios, well, it's okay, just breathe through it. And yes, breathing will help, but it's a very different scenario. And I think that's where some wisdom from Viktor Frankl and that kind of line of research and science comes quite in handy, because even his first-hand experience was quite relevant.
Yeah, he developed logotherapy, and we can start talking about that. And he was really advertising that if you are in these really harsh environments like war zones or natural catastrophes or whatever is going on, maybe like election days in US, because here is also like really heightened and crazy around this. So that you really accept it, that you don't push it away. Okay, I'm not here, or this shouldn't be happening. This is happening. This is here. This is right now. You are in this situation. So accept it. And when you accept it, I think some kind of burden, it falls off, because you are not fighting against it. You are just accepting the situation. And then you can start seeking for what can you do, what kind of purpose can you have in this situation that is occurring. And he really lovely put it like, just be focused on others. How can you help in your environment, in your society, and focus on your family. Make like morning or daily rituals like morning breathing or praying or journaling, or going out and seeing who else is needed in help for help. So when you help someone, then it's not only about you, it's about others, and it's easier to manage the day and to go through whatever you are in. So having a good connections, having good relationship with others, I think this can be really helpful, because you are not alone in this situation, but there are also others. And I think this is really the core of his work, like having this purpose, not focused only on yourself, but a little bit wider. So, and I think this kind of society, when we are only on our phones and we are really individualistic driven, this is really important.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. And for those who's not familiar with Viktor Frankl and his work, he actually is an concentration camp survivor. So if you read his book, In Search of what it's called, Man's Search for Meaning. Actually, funny enough, it's the first book on my shelf there. So I'm just like, oh, Man's Search for Meaning.
It's amazing.
It is, but it's very tough to read as well because he's been through horrors in his life, and so he talks how he made it through and what helped him and what was the difference between those who did make it through and those who didn't. And a lot of it was really in finding that purpose, finding that meaning. And even though the external circumstances, the physical conditions were just horrendous for all of them, but what made the difference is really having the purpose and
not losing hope.
Yeah. Yeah. And picking up on the purpose, something that I remembered as well when you were talking about it, in some of the studies around PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, what they discovered is also in people who were, for example, trapped somewhere, and if it was a group of people and they were studying them, they eventually managed to escape, let's say, from that dangerous situation, and they were studying how they were affected by this experience. What was discovered is that people who actually kept themselves gainfully occupied in a sense of trying to actively look for escape or trying to find a solution for themselves, for the whole group. So they were really focused on this. They actually did quite okay. They did not suffer later on. But people who just got completely overwhelmed or gave up and they just kind of sat down and said, this is it, we're doomed, they were the ones that experienced it to a high degree. So that pretty much ties into that purpose point for me, and hope and not giving up.
And I would also add that if you experience something really bad and you don't have the safe environment back home or some friends that you can talk the thing through and that you feel safe afterwards, then I think this can lead to trauma or PTSD. But if research showed that if you have a safe environment and you can talk things through, even if some, really bad thing happen, and you come in connection with people who are there for you, who give you a space, that you really feel, I am safe now, then you can manage it better and you don't have such a severe trauma afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think this is also with anxiety, because like normal anxiety, the type B, what you were saying prior, is not feeling safe in our bodies. And it stems out from our childhood. And when we felt safe, then we carry this with us.
Yeah. And if you look at the root of anxiety, there is always uncertainty, right? So it could be real uncertainty and it could be perceived uncertainty. And with that often comes this desire to control things. We almost feel like, okay, if I control, and that gets people into OCD sometimes, and all sorts of controlling behavior patterns, because they feel safer when they think they're in control. But essentially, we can't control anything. The world is changing, everything is evolving. We really have very little that we can control. The only thing we can truly control is our mind and the thoughts that we think. But we like to trick ourselves into believing that we are in control. I'm very organized, so I'm in control. And if I'm in control, I'm safe, right? But yeah.
I know 3 steps ahead what I'm going to do.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, what would you say about type B anxiety when it's perceived anxiety? Or it's not perceived, you feel anxious, and that might not be true, or that are just in our fantasy?
Yeah. Look, I think, it's if it's there, it's there. Like, we cannot say, almost like with any feelings, if you're experiencing it, it is there. And I would get curious about it as with everything else. But I would also challenge it and say, well, what is the thought that's causing this anxiety? And there is always a thought behind it, right? So it could be, I don't know, oh, I'm going to lose my job, or I'm not going to, if someone is unemployed, I'm not going to find a job, or if they are in a relationship that's not working, they will be worried that maybe I'm never going to meet another person and I'm going to die alone and so on. Whatever the circumstances, it's this thought, this scenario in the head. And so I would say, yeah, it's good to catch yourself, to identify what is the thought that's causing anxiety. And then to your earlier point about acceptance, almost again, it brings me to Byron Katie's work around her work. She literally calls it work, right? And the first step of the work is to challenge the thought and say, is it actually true? And then if you say yes, and it's good to have actually to feel that thought and feel how it lands. And then, do I absolutely know for sure that it's true? And it's almost like playing devil's advocate and seeing, could there be a different explanation for whatever, right? So I think quite often after asking yourself those two questions, we may find that, well, actually, maybe not.
Usually not.
Exactly.
They're really nice turnarounds in her work, so I like it. I really like it. But with anxiety, I would also argue that it's sometimes hard to beat it with your mind, because anxiety is a body experience, and it's one really good technique. It's called ABC. Have you heard about it? So it's easy. So A is awareness. So you are aware. Okay, I'm feeling this anxiety, or some say it's alarm. It's not anxiety, but it's alarm in the body. So where do I feel this? And then let's say it's in your belly, and then you put your hand on your belly, and you try to see it, feel it in different shapes, colors, temperature. And then B is body. So you are with it and you breathe with it, and you are just there, you accept it. And C is compassion. So you feel it like maybe you see it like your 9-year-old version or 3-year-old version, and you are compassionate with it. Like for me, I realized just today when I was showering that because I was really ill as a kid, and I was till 7. I think I was 7 years old, and I was in the hospitals for many months, like in one piece, and there were no parents around, and I think this left a big hole in myself. Like, I'm not safe. They abandoned me. And it's not easy, but it's helpful if you say to yourself, I'm safe now. And you just have in your mind this 7-year-old girl who was left alone in some hospital because of some illness, and just say to her, you are safe. You are safe. And then the anxiety just melts. Not always, but sometimes you can just say to yourself, I'm okay, I'm safe. And then you start finding solutions. What can I do? Is this real? Is this perceived? Is this valid? Did I make an elephant out of a fly, or is it truly so big? Or but first, calm yourself down, like soothe yourself. This helps for me. So I don't know if for everybody, but this helps for me, and I think it's a good way. Or journaling.
Thank you for sharing that. I think this is very important, actually, piece. Yeah, because there is also anxiety can be at very different degrees of it, right? We can experience it as very mild or very strong. And when it's quite strong, then indeed you can't engage into this analytical exercise until you calm down to some extent. And that's where body is so important. And that's a great way you described. And then there are various breathing techniques that help connect, but whatever works for you to really connect with the body, to get yourself out of the head and into the body. And sometimes it can be as easy as just taking a moment, taking a deep breath out, and then noticing the surface that you're in contact with, your bum on the chair, your feet on the ground, just feeling that, feeling your body, noticing what's happening, brings you a bit more in the present moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there are many types of anxiety. I remember I had really bad anxiety before visiting a dentist, because my dentist when I was little was not nice, let's say it like that. So then no matter how much how much breathing exercises I did, nothing helped, because I had this in my mind, in my unconscious memory, that this is so much painful that I will not survive it again. So then, just being with that pain, being with that fear, recognizing it's not something that will occur now, because nowadays dentists, they are painless. So, but just be present. Yeah, like you said, be aware, be curious. Why?
It all goes back to being present and being curious and being compassionate, I guess. Yeah.
Do you have any other techniques that you would recommend? How to calm anxiety?
Yeah, I think, we did speak about breathing before, and there are a few. You could use the box breathing, which is always a good one. Just taking inhale to the count of 4, for example, hold the breath to the count of 4, exhale to the count of 4, and hold for the count of 4. It could be 3 if you can't do 4, 5 if you want to hold it longer, but it's the same timing. That's a good one. And you can do various calming techniques with your breathing. Notice where you are. Then if you are more analytical and you're in a position to engage into this whole mental exercise, then it's good to challenge the thought, identify the thought behind the anxiety. What are you actually anxious about? And then challenge it. Is it true? Is it valid? What are other potential explanations? And are they actually more realistic than the one that has caused you anxiety in the first place? And another thing that was coming up for me is around acceptance that you spoke about earlier, Petra, and I think it really is important in all situations, but especially when indeed there is a situation that you can do nothing about. And Katie also talks about it beautifully. I like how she talks about almost splitting everything into my business, your business, and God's business, as she puts it, right? And a lot of anxiety comes when we are in someone else's business. And a lot of the statements that people come up with, the problems to her, are like, Paul should be doing something or should not be doing something. And that's not your business. In the end of the day, they will be doing whatever. And people are like, oh, my husband, my wife, my partner, my boss should be. Well, it's not your business. It's their business. You can only deal with your business. And trying to get into who should be doing what will always bring you anxiety and nothing else. You can't control it. You can't change it. You can't change other people. And you can't change world events, unfortunately. And that's more of what she would refer to as God's business, if you like, so kind of big scale events. And just really pausing, for me, it's such a simple concept. But when I read about it, I was like, this is so liberating. Just not trying to change anyone, just accepting, okay, that's the way that person is. And they might as well stay that way for the rest of their life. There's nothing I can do about it. It's not my business.
Yeah, now when you were talking about this, Irina, it just came into my mind one book I read when I was 17. And it's like, don't take anything personal. And I didn't get it at that time. Like, how what does that mean? Like, don't get it personal. Now I do. And it's, yeah, thank you for reminding me on that. I would also add, if you feel anxiety and you maybe are not, because not many people are aware of the situation, or they can get into the contact with their bodies, that they do some kind of body exercises like yoga, tai chi, pilates, where you are focused on movement and you combine movement with breath. So it's not like mindless doing something, but you really need to count your breaths, count your like just be really fluid with everything you are doing, and combining with it with your breath. For me, this works wonders, because for 1 hour or maybe 20 minutes, you are focused only on your muscles, on your body positions, on the breaths that you are taking in, on exhales that you are making, and you just forget about everything else.
Yeah, that's great that you brought it up, actually. I was thinking about it earlier, but it completely escaped my mind. And I think these mindful practices where you connect the body as well is a great way. And if it is available to you, connecting with nature, so going for a walk or a hike or just being with nature, connecting there, it really can help a lot to some people as well.
Especially if it's a bit more challenging, that you don't let your mind wander and just be in your mind and not seeing the nature, but really seeing the birds, listening to the birds, listening to the sounds of the wind, and maybe to the stream nearby, or something that you really experience everything that is around you.
Yeah. And one more thing that I was thinking to mention is really, sometimes it gets too much and it's overwhelming, and people end up self-medicating, be it with alcohol or whatever is, and could be drugs, could be other addictive behaviors, or could be actually anti-anxiety drugs. And again, in some cases they are very helpful and they are very much needed for a short period of time. But again, before going that route, I would really invite you to explore alternative options, really looking, or in parallel, looking in the root cause and engaging professional help if you need to, but not just because what the pills do, they numb the pain in a way. They eliminate the symptoms and the presenting problem, so you don't see it, but the issue is still there. But if you're into self-medicating route and you're drinking or smoking or using substances, whatever you're doing, or shopping, wine is fine in a sense, it's a release, but more I'm talking more, about those kind of addictive behaviors that we tend to feel almost shame after doing that, or maybe binge eating, I don't know, two chocolate cakes or two boxes of ice cream. I would say, if it gets to the point where you're in so much turmoil that this is the only escape, do it. But don't beat yourself up for it, and do it mindfully to the extent possible. Just pause for a second and say, okay, I'm just going to eat this massive pizza, or I'm going to drink this bottle of wine. Not just grab it and do it, but pause for a second and say, I'm so overwhelmed, it's just too much for me, I need a bit of relief now, and I'm choosing to do this. And then don't beat yourself up for it. This was your choice and your decision. That's might be a bit unconventional, and I did not come up with it. It was inspired by something actually I heard Gabor talking about, but it really resonated with me, and this is something I've started applying to myself. And sometimes I did find myself in a situation where I'm like, oh, I feel a bit overwhelmed. I'll have a glass of wine, not because I just want to enjoy its taste, but actually to help me regulate. And just approaching it with that sense of awareness makes a big difference.
I'm sure it does, if it doesn't get into a habit.
Yeah, of course. And it's not a permanent solution. It's more of a transition. In the meantime, I would say you need to seek help. You need to work through your issues, but it may be difficult to quit something overnight. You know, if it's been a coping mechanism, a strategy for 15, 20, 30, 40 years, it might be difficult. And I think the context I heard the conversation in was actually with a drug addict who was occasionally relapsing and felt very much ashamed about it. And I think, you know, that was the context that, you know, said, yes, on this path, well, you're moving in the right direction, but you might still relapse and you might occasionally find yourself doing it. And there is always a trigger. So, you know, what's happened in those days. So yeah, definitely I'm not encouraging that as a permanent solution and go to strategy, but in interim, while you are working through the root cause and learning to not act on those impulses, it is a bit of a journey.
It is. Everything is a journey. So I would say also this body awareness, when you start feeling your triggers, your alarms, your anxiety, it's not a quick solution. So I heard really good comparison, like if I say to you that I'm gonna give you $1 million if you're gonna on 1st of September, if you're gonna wear basketball, if you just hit 3 straight goals, or how you call this one, the shots, then I guess you won't start practicing on 1st September in the morning. You will start practicing basketball like months
Now.
ahead.
I have to go, sorry.
Yeah, today. So you know, it's the same with this. You have to practice it every day, that when you need it, you are ready. Because if you don't practice it and you know that something exists, okay, when I will feel anxiety or this trigger or that, I will then connect to my body. I will get curious. I will do this and this and this, what Irina and Petra were talking about. But no, it doesn't work like that. So like maybe every morning when somebody wakes up, it's good because you have anxiety in your body, it's stored in your body, and it can be like a tension or some pain or something, and you can, when you wake up, you can, before you take your phone in your hand and start looking for the latest headlines, what is happening around, or how many likes did you get for your post, you can really take few moments, make a nice deep breath, and scan your body. Okay, I have the tension today in my neck or in my shoulder or in my belly, and just be with it, accept it, and learn how to deal with those kind of situations, how to deal with your body, how to accept it, how to be with it. And I think if this becomes a daily practice, then when you get like really anxious, you won't get into overwhelm. You won't need this band-aid, like in terms of a glass of wine or going. I think running is also an addiction because it releases a lot of endorphins, and when you run, you feel better. And sometimes, if people are really running, I heard therapists ask them, "What do you run from?" You know.
Yeah.
It's not with every sport like that, but I think running gives you this extra pleasure because of, especially if you do a marathon running, it's not like 2K only. Yeah, but just be aware every day and practice and practice and practice. So, yeah. And I heard really good thought that if we experience something traumatic, we store it in our body. I think Bessel was talking about it. And we store it in our body, and then we have headaches, we have back pains, and we go to doctor, we have a scan, and everything is really nice. It looks perfect, but we feel this excruciating pain, and we don't know why. Maybe we stored something there, and
I think it's more than 90%. The number was completely mind-boggling when I read it, of people who come to see doctors. They don't really get any diagnosis for the pain and whatever the discomforts they've been experiencing. And I worked with someone just yesterday, someone with terrible headaches, and we had a wonderful session in hypnosis. And this morning she's like, oh, I woke up without headache. And yeah, it's all in the body. And a lot of people do not recognize it. It's not really spoken about it on a bigger scale. But, at the same time, even 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greeks, they were talking about the unity of mind and body. It's all interconnected, and it gets really stuck. All the unprocessed emotions, all the stress, it's in the body.
Especially when we want to push something away, some tough breakup or losing a job, and you don't want to think about it because no, I'm just gonna avoid it. I don't wanna feel because it's too painful. And then usually your body is affected one way or another. So okay, we run a bit of away from anxiety, but I think this is also a part of it. Because
really, everything that you're trying to push down will come up.
Stored emotions, not unprocessed emotions. Yeah, so yeah. So the recipe is awareness, feeling it in your body, accept it, and then just be really compassionate, I guess. And do the work from Warren Katie. See you next Monday.
See you. Thank you everyone for tuning in.